Hello and welcome back. So this video I'm going to be going over the Shatter Me series. If you remember from my last video, it is a 6-part series. I have it right here with me so you guys can see it again. Shatter Me, 6 books. They're the ones that have the eye on the front, at least the copies that I have. So we're going to be going over that today, but the first thing also I wanted to talk about was just saying a thank you to my 3 new subscribers. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to actually hit the subscribe button, and hopefully I can continue to produce videos that you will enjoy. So moving on to the Shatter Me series. Alright, let me read this to you really fast. So give me a moment so I can read this. This is not a novel. It is a collection of similes and metaphors, most of which do not make sense. I can't recall anything positive about it that would justify a rating more than 1 star. So that is a review. One of the first reviews actually that's listed for this series. Well, it's not for the series, actually for the first book, Shatter Me here. So that's the first rating that's listed on Goodreads for Shatter Me. Before I had started the series, I did look at the reviews for it because I wasn't for sure. I was just curious, honestly, you know, what people had said about it, things like that. And I had read this and I was like, oh, did I just make a mistake? Did I just buy 6 books that are not going to be good? Did I just waste my money on these books? That's the thought process that was going through my head. And as I continue to scroll through this review, and granted this review I think is back from 2012, oh no, 2011. It's a very old review. And she continues this long, you know, rant about it, and she also says, Shatter Me's numerous metaphors, similes, and endless descriptions just didn't make sense. And, you know, like anybody, you're reading this, and it's only 1 review out of, you know, the many. And you keep on reading it, and I just couldn't help feeling like, oh no, I made a huge mistake. But let me tell you, so I finished the series, and I thought it was good. I had no issues with it. And I will say, so the very, very beginning of the book, if you open it to this page here, the author literally, let me read this to you. The author literally says, Dear reader, the strike-throughs in the Shatter Me books are intentional. The writing in the series is occasionally as erratic as its main character and serves as a visual representation of the chaos in Juliet's mind. The repetition, the hyperbolic language, the obsession with numbers, these are not errors on the page. As our heroine grows and evolves, so too does the prose. As she finds her voice, the strike-throughs disappear, the language softens, the repetition dissolves, and the numerals ease into written words. This is, ultimately, a story of change. Thank you so much for reading. So, for anybody who has read these reviews and did not read the series based on the reviews, at least the first couple of reviews that pop up, the author literally tells you, gives you a warning right here, basically about what everything these reviews are talking about. So after I had read those reviews and decided to go ahead and read the series, I read that first page and I was like, okay, you know, I'm in for something a little different than I'm used to reading, right? So the strike-throughs, if you're curious what those are, so it's literally like on every single book page or every single cover of the book, it has something written down and then it's crossed out and then it says something next to it. So that actually occurs throughout this book. Let me see, okay. See, cross through, whatever. So, and there is a lot of similes and metaphors and everything throughout the book, but like the author states in that first paragraph there, it's intentional, right? So I'm gonna try to talk about the book or the series without giving too much away because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who wants to read it. Now, granted, I think the copy that I have of the first book, Shatter Me, I think this one was not the original copy that was originally published. This is a newer copy, I believe. So I don't know if in the first copy, the author actually had that warning in place. I don't know if maybe when the book first came out, it got bad reviews because people weren't understanding what was actually happening within the book. So then later copies, the author decided to put kind of like that warning in place to kind of explain why the strike-throughs were happening, why there were so many similes and metaphors and things like that. So I don't really know. I didn't research that aspect, but if that warning was in place to begin with, then readers should have known that, hey, this is going to be something a little different, you know, things like that. But I don't know. I didn't do research into that, so hard telling. But anyways, so back to the actual overview of what the Shatter Me series books are. So the Shatter Me series is about a dystopian type world. This world is in ruin and chaos because of basically global warming, and so there's a new government that has been set in place. I believe it's called the Reestablishment. So with this new government, the world has been broken up into 6 distinct categories. Some of them are similar to what we have or what we call parts of the world now. But it is North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and the one that's different from what we have is called Oceania. So these are the 6 new regions of this new world that the Reestablishment has made. So as you can imagine, the Reestablishment basically is out just for themselves. They don't really care about the people, things like that, even though that's what they claim to care about in the very beginning, and that's why they got elected to be the government, because they made all these promises to the people saying, you know, we're gonna help everybody, and they live in poor conditions, the actual people, while the Reestablishment, the people who are in the Reestablishment, live really lavishly and things like that. So within this new world, there's also new abilities that had started developing as well. So think of like the X-Men meet dystopian type world. These powers range from, you know, telekinesis, invisibility, reading people's minds, things like that. And as you can imagine, our main character, Juliet, has superpowers, I guess, if you want to call them. And her powers, I don't want to give too much away about her powers, but basically her powers are frowned upon. They cause destruction, right? And so throughout her entire life, her family, who's supposed to love her unconditionally, basically calls her a monster, tells her how can she be like this, all these different things. And they basically send her to hospitals and detention centers, and she just gets experimented on and poked and prodded, and then she eventually winds up in an insane asylum, which is the state she's in, where she's at whenever the first book starts, when we get introduced to her in the first book. So you can imagine what her mindset is like. She's been in there for almost a full year. She's had no human contact. She hasn't seen another person face to face. Because this insane asylum is different from what we would think of as nowadays, right? So there's no nurses that come in and tend to her. There's no human interaction whatsoever. It's just basically her by herself in a cell that has no light, only has one window, and she's basically kind of gone, I don't want to say insane, because I don't think she's insane, but her mind is definitely not where it should be. And that is shown through the writing in the first book, in the strike-throughs. The strike-throughs, I think, really showcase, you know, what her inner mind, her inner conscience, whatever, like, it knows what's going on, and it says the truth, or she tells herself the truth, but then the rest of her is like, no, that's not right? You're here because you're a monster. You don't know right from wrong, those types of things. So along with being a dystopian type world and kind of like that X-Men like superpower feel with the characters, of course it is also a romance novel, like it is a YA book. So there is of course going to be romance in it. So in the first book, she does get introduced to one of the male characters. His name is Adam, and he's the first contact she's had for a year. He winds up in her cell with her, and of course, you know, they start falling in love and stuff like that. And if we fast forward, there's another character, which you could say is the enemy, the other enemy, of course, besides the reestablishment. And his name is Warner. So this character, this new character that we get introduced to, he has this obsession with Juliet, right? And he basically claims that he loves her and all this stuff, and he wants to be with her. And at first it's like, okay, well, he doesn't really love her, obviously, because it's just an obsession. Because how can he love her after only knowing her for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever time frame it is that they know each other. So obviously throughout the rest of the series, you get to know Warner more and his backstory, and basically there's just a lot of revelations that come out in the book that I don't want to talk about because there's so many details within the series and a lot of revelations and things that just kind of like put more aspects in perspective that you're like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense now. So overall, I really enjoyed the series, and I think if somebody were trying to decide to read it or not based on some reviews that they might see, and decide not to, in my opinion, if you like the type of books that I typically like, then I think this would be a good series for somebody to read. There are some surprises and things within the series that's just like, okay, now I understand, now it makes sense why certain things are the way they are. And I think the biggest thing, especially for the first book, don't just get discouraged by the cross-outs and all the metaphors and similes and everything, because you have to remember, okay, she's been in this asylum for a year without any human contact, without anything other than herself and a pen and paper that she somehow stole, and that's the only thing she has to really release emotion and things like that. So you have to remember her state of mind, and not get frustrated with all those things that people are pointing out in reviews that they don't like and why they don't think it's a good book or well written. I really liked the way it was written, and I liked the characters, and I thought the dialogue between the characters, I thought that flowed really nicely, and I think you really get to see that with the more characters are eventually introduced. I always say, like, if the dialogue feels natural and it can make me laugh and, you know, laugh out loud, not just like, you know, inner laugh, then that's, to me, that's a good sign of when something is well written and when the dialogue is just smooth, if that makes sense. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the series. Some of the things I didn't like about the series. So there's a point with Juliet's character where I'm just like, okay, why did she make that decision? Why does she feel so strongly about this? When she's never really hinted towards it before. But I think you got to remember, like, okay, you're only halfway through the book. Don't get frustrated with her character quite yet, because her character is still growing. She still has growth, things like that. And I think with the remaining books, it really dived into kind of like why she was feeling that way and kind of how she backpedals, and she's like, oh, maybe I'm not the leader I think I am at this point in time, but it doesn't mean I can't get there. I'm just not there yet, if that makes sense. Some of the other things too, I think her love interest in the book, like for me, it's like when she was with the one person, and I don't want to like try to give too much away here, but and I think this happens a lot in books, like when the main character decides that they really aren't in love with this one person, that they're in love with this other person. To me, like the love interest interactions, I couldn't really tell them apart, if that makes sense. Like the one person that she stated that she loved in this instance, their interaction with each other, like when they're kissing and stuff like that, I didn't feel any different from that interaction from with the person that she actually ended up with, if that makes sense. Like it was all, to me, both interactions were very, very intense and high emotions and things like that. And I just wish there was some distinction of like, okay, well, this one that she's certain about feels different from the one that she thought she was certain about, if that makes sense. Don't know if it does, but it doesn't to me. So yeah, the other thing I didn't like, not that I dislike, I've talked about this before, but halfway through the book, or hold on, book 4, was it book 4? I think book 4, I wrote it down. It looks like it's book 4, it might have been book 3, but I wrote down book 4. All of a sudden, it goes into more than just Juliet's perspective. So there's actually 2 different perspectives in book 4, and then book 5 continues to have more perspectives in it. And I don't know why this bugs me so much, but it does. I don't think, it wasn't a bad thing to be able to have these different perspectives, but it just always like throws me off a little bit when I start reading a series and it's like from one point of view, and then the next book ends up being in with like multiple different points of views, and it's just like, okay, well, it just kind of throws me. I don't necessarily hate it, it just throws me off, but that's that. So that was the Shatter Me series. So here they are again. The first one, Shatter Me. Second one, Unravel Me. Third one, Ignite Me. Fourth one, Restore Me. Fifth one, Defy Me. And the sixth one, Imagine Me. So again, good series, give it a try. Don't hate it from the first one. Just remember, read the first part, remember her situation, and you'll understand.